now running my own thing, I've found that grace and I found that empathy. And I found that like, all right, that's cool. Like we'll just figure it out. It's not going to be destitute. All these things. I don't know where all that pressure came from because now I have spent all of my life savings. We are pulling a HELOC out of the house to keep it going while we raise our angel round. Like all of those things that people think like, oh, all these risk factors, I'm doing it all. And I can honestly say I feel nowhere near the pressure or stress.
In today's episode, we're diving into the fast-paced world of automotive innovation with a true trailblazer, Erica, a seasoned B2B expert who spent over 2 decades mastering the art of steering through the automotive sector. With a relentless passion for helping people do more of what they love, Erica founded Autofluencer, the industry's first brand partnership platform designed to turbocharge creativity. Whether it's connecting brands and creators or measuring the magic of their collaborations, Erica's mission is to empower others to thrive. Before founding Autofluencer, Erica spent 13 transformative years as an early team member at the largest customer data and experience platform in the automotive retail space. From product and technology to operations and strategy, she's worn countless hats, all while maintaining a drive to innovate and make a difference. Don't miss out on this episode as Erica shares her journey, insights, and the powerful vision behind Autofluencer. Tune in and learn how you can accelerate your creative partnerships and fuel your own entrepreneurial journey. And don't forget to subscribe and likes and comment so you can continue to be a part of this amazing community. And thank you so much, Erica, for being here today. It is such a pleasure to have you. I can't wait to just dive into your journey, how you got here today, because I feel like it's so fascinating. We've been chatting a lot prior to filming the other day, and I'm just so amazed at everything that you've accomplished. So first off, thank you for being here today.
Well, thanks so much, Caroline. I am super excited to be here myself, and ready to dive into it.
Yes, absolutely. So I just want to start with your sense of identity, how it's evolved from being an early team member at the biggest customer data and experience platform to the automotive retail space and becoming the founder of Autofluencer. So I would love to know, what was that journey like for you?
So my company prior to this, I was there for 13 years. And like you said, I was, I think, team member number 5. A friend of mine had started the company and I was actually contracting for a couple different companies. And I think in my head, I wanted to do this other startup. So it was really just going to be a just for now thing.
Mhm.
I think I was getting paid like 20 bucks an hour. It was only supposed to be 20 hours a week. And she just needed help with something. I was like, all right. And then 12 years later, I was still there. It's funny, that transition is so interesting because when I left there, it was really mostly to do with, I was just burnt out on the space. You know, I love the company. I love the team. I love my boss, who was the CEO. And it was just more of the space. You said automotive, it was in automotive retail, which is car dealers. And I'd been in that space for over 20 years. And, just the relationship between the manufacturers and the dealers were so bad. There was no passion. I'm fueled by passion. Like I joke, I have OPP, like other people's passions, like inspire me. And really, I think it was the force, the passion. My CEO is very passionate as well. And I think it was her passion that kept me going. I probably would have burnt out had it been anybody else 6 years earlier. And but she kept me going. And but then finally I just had a point. I think I was in my early 40s, just kind of like, if I'm gonna make a big change, like now is the time. But it's interesting because I left there and I was like, I'm never going to operate again. I don't want to be an operator. I just want to be like a consultant. And just like this magic of like, I just want to like sit back and like give people advice,
Yeah.
but like not have to do it. Like that was my like dream at that point. I think I just needed a little bit of a rest. And then I kind of fell into Autofluencer in a few ways. The idea had been my husband's, the initial like kernel of it, but he's a CEO of an ad tech company. He couldn't do it. He'd had the idea for years. And I started looking into it. And in my head, we were going to like build a prototype and like get some product market feedback of like what it needed and then find a CEO to come and run it. But the deeper I got in and the more I met the different manufacturers, so our space is the specialty automotive. So it is people that build products to make your car perform better, look cooler, go a whole lot faster. And the more I met these manufacturers, they are so passionate. And then what we do is we connect those manufacturers with social media influencers or creators so that those manufacturers can get their products out to the millennial, the Gen Z buyer, that social buyer. Because as you can imagine, that our industry really focuses a lot on like magazines and TV, and that's gone. Like, that's not really getting it done. They have very lean marketing teams. It's usually like one poor human that runs sales and marketing trying to do all the things. And it's critical that they partner with these influencers because they have not done a great job at transitioning off that kind of boomer generation to the millennial and Gen Z generations as buyers. So we're seeing a slowing in growth in our space. So that's what we do. We solve that problem. We help bring them together. And then once I really met those content creators who are not, I think what you think of when you think of regular social media influencers, they're actually building a car, they're racing a car, they're restoring a car. They got started on their own and they're doing it for the first time because during COVID, they had this old VW Beetle that they're like, I should restore this, even though I don't know how to do it. And they're so amazing and they were so inspiring and talk about passion. I was hook, line, and sinker. I quit all my consulting. I was like, I'm doing this full time. I fell in love. And what's so funny is I went from thinking, I don't want to operate to loving it. And what I realized, and you mentioned this comment of like transitioning from a team member to now an entrepreneur. And the advice I would give anybody who thinks, oh, well, I can't do my own thing. I would look at what my boss could do, the CEO of our company, and think, I can't do what she does. She, in times of crisis, she's so cool and collected. In times where, it was really when things would go wrong and I would turtle, I would freak out, and what I realized is the pressure I was putting on myself as a team member, I had no grace for myself. I had no forgiveness for myself. She never put that kind of pressure on me. She never said, oh, you're doing a bad job or freaked out at me or anything like that. It was all pressure I was putting on myself and transitioning to now. And I did a lot of self-work. Like I knew I was putting that pressure on myself and I would try to stop it. And I would read all of these books and try to meditate. I suck at meditating. I try. And I now running my own thing, I've found that grace and I found that empathy. And I found that like, all right, that's cool. Like, we'll just figure it out. I run out, like all the things that you could think were worst case scenario that were never going to happen in my old company. We were doing over 40 million in ARR when I left and they're doing even better now. And I was not going to be destitute. All these things, I don't know where all that pressure came from because now I have spent all of my life savings. We are pulling a HELOC out of the house to keep it going while we raise our angel round. Like all of those things that people think like, oh, all these risk factors, I'm doing it all. And I can honestly say, I feel nowhere near the pressure or stress. Like, yeah, I might wake up at 3 a.m. being like, oh, I got to figure this out. But I sit down and I get to business and I figure it out. And it is the weirdest thing, Caroline. Like, I don't know why it is or where I found it. And I think I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. Like everywhere I go, I'm like, oh, that could be a business, like, but I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think I had it in me. I didn't. And I mean, time will obviously be the real test, but I think the things I thought I didn't have, I found them. Yeah. And I think there is a difference. It's like, I never wanted to let my boss down. Like when I had someone above me, I'm like, I want to be the best possible, COO ever. And if something would go wrong, I'm like, I should have predicted that. I should have known. I should have had better processes. It was wild, the pressure I was putting, and she never put that pressure on me. Like it was a global pandemic. She was like, no one could have
Yeah.
seen this coming, you know?
Yeah, you can't control that.
Right. And so it's wild the strength I think you find in yourself. And so I would encourage everybody, if they have that inkling, just go for it
Yeah.
and do it. And you will be so surprised. And and I think the other trick is
Yeah.
don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. Like if you overthink it, just go for it. I wake up every morning and I just put one foot in front of the other and I try not to get overwhelmed. Um, and I just today's just it's what I can handle today. Don't think about the year from now or the this. And you have to do that kind of as an entrepreneur to have the vision and the whatever, but I can tell when it starts to run away with me and I do start to get overwhelmed by like, I can't be $100 million company. I can't do that. I like and then I'm just like, you know what? All I got to do is today.
Yes.
I just
Yeah.
got to get through today and get done when I get done. And I can think about that tomorrow. And it's wild.
It is. And I'm so glad you brought that up because I think a lot of times going from that employee mindset to building your own business, there is a huge shift. There's so many shifts that happen, but I love that you brought up like the fact that you put the pressure on yourself and no one else did because I'm exactly the same way.
Yes.
I mean, I still do it, but not as much. But I think
Yeah.
it's an important aspect to realize that you're one person and giving yourself grace and empathy and compassion. And it's easier said than done for sure. But what was that process like for you to really start understanding, okay, I need to give myself grace? Like, was there a process for you?
Um, I think, well, twofold. I will say before leaving my last company, I started working with an executive coach.
Mm.
And because I was trying to figure out, can I work through this burnout I'm experiencing, or can I not work through it? Right. And I kind of wanted to see where I was at. And kind of like I was saying, I think I'd burn out 6 years earlier, and just through force of her passion, I stayed because of my former CEO and friend and mentor and um but the coach really helped me kind of work through that, and I continue to work with her through now. I have paused because finances are super tight, but I do plan to, as soon as we raise that angel round, I will bring her back on. And because having that person for me was such a game changer, and and picking the right person is very, very important. I really struggled with finding an executive coach, but it's a lot of the work with her, because she would be like, girl, what you beating yourself up for? Like, who's going to be upset at you? Who is telling you this? And I'm like, and it would always be me. It would always be me.
Yeah.
And we would have a lot of conversation about, look, we all have anxieties, we all have fears, but they can't be in the driver's seat,
Yeah.
right? And your role. And it still, sometimes I struggle with this concept of like observing, be the observer of that. And I can do it a little better now. Like I do, being a woman, and you'll empathize, the dudes may not get this, but man, once a month I'll get this. All of a sudden I'll start to get a little overwhelmed, a little anxious, which isn't usually my normal personality on the whole. And it's funny, I'll look at my Fitbit app, and if I'll be like, oh, that's why. That's why. And it's funny because if I would ever have my executive coach call during those times, we'd kind of realize, but I've been able to now observe that, which I never did before. And I'd be able to say, oh, okay, this is my anxiety. It's related to hormones, and it will pass. And sure enough, day 3, I'm like, it's so beautiful out.
It just flips, you know?
It's so weird. It's like 2 days of like a little Eeyore. Like I feel like I have a little cloud. And then day 3, I'm
The
like,
umbrella.
yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, I think that definitely helped, having a coach. And I will say, just from a transparency standpoint, I think when people hear the term executive coach, if you've ever looked into coaching, it can be really depressing. It can be very expensive. It can be, they want to work with you for like 6 to 12 months. They want your company, when they're like, oh, you're by yourself. Your company's not going to pay for it, because they really, They want your whole exec team. They don't want just you.
Yeah.
So it was a really depressing. And then I found this company called Sky. And I think they still do individual coaching. They have shifted to be more enterprise, but they're worth looking up. Joinsky.com, skye.com. I'm not an ambassador for them, but they're it's kind of like I call it like a match.com or more like an eHarmony where you'd have to fill out if anybody remembers that, like this
The
really
first
long if you were
one.
ever on the dating sites. Um, I've heard from a friend that you have to fill out this whole thing, this personality trait thing, and they do that, and then they match you kind of based on what your goals and objectives are with different people, and you can do a 30-minute call with each of them. And it was funny just through the visuals and reading the descriptions of the 4 people. And again,
Yeah.
my mindset was pretty heavy burnout at the time. There was like these women that were in power suits that are like, I've helped, women rise to the top and be these hardcore leaders. And then the fourth one was like, I used to work at Google. I used to work at Facebook. I quit my job, moved to Mexico, and I'm an executive coach. I'm like, oh, that's my girl.
Yes. I was like, that feels like your vibe.
That's my vibe. That's me, Tori. That's my woman. And she has been. And and you were able to do it a one-off. You were able to try different people before you picked the right person. You could do a package, but you didn't have to do a package. And literally, I mean, I think she's raised her rates a little bit, but I mean, for a couple $100, $300 a month, like for once a month, best investment I ever made. And so I would encourage that to anybody who's struggling. There are solutions where you can find an executive coach.
Yes.
And just, yeah. So for me, that really helped. And I also think that, so yeah, you have to have an executive. I can't speak to that enough, or find a mentor, find an advisor, someone you speak once a month with, who you can be truly honest and open with. I'm a very, very transparent and open person. And I've started to learn, like, with my $15 an hour intern, who I love. She's not an intern, she's our social coordinator, but I love her so much. She's so great. I can't share everything with her though, because I don't want to freak the poor girl out, right? I don't want to be like, are we gonna run out of money? Or like, I can't freak her out. And I can't share all the things with her, right? And so to have that person makes a huge difference.
It absolutely does. And I think part of that is, as you grow, certain aspects of responsibilities are going to grow with your team as well, like what
Yeah,
they know, but they don't know. I mean, we've learned that
right.
our solar company of just people we've hired, sometimes we give too much information and that's bad guidance.
Yes.
So we reeled it back a little bit.
I,
Every personality is different.
I know. I think you and I are so similar. Yeah. And, again, my old boss, I think she was great she was always very open. But and helped and coached me a lot. I'm like, we don't gotta be that, hey, you don't have to share every thought in your head, Erica. Like, and so, but yeah, I mean, that is still part of my MO. Like, I probably still will overshare, and that will probably be a lesson I continue to learn over and over, but it's just hard because that's just me, and that's kind of my authenticity. But yeah, it is, to have a person that you can be really truly open, honest, and vulnerable with. I mean, even my husband, it's hard, like, to sometimes share some of those fears because I don't want to freak him out, because in a way, well, he's, not really involved with the company, he's put money into it, and he's, there's an investment happening from him as well. There's an investment on our lifestyle, like we used to when I had a full-time job, and, we were both executives, and we could go on these big vacations. And now I'm like, ooh, yeah,
You gotta wait.
yeah, I'm like, no, I don't think a 10-day Mediterranean cruise is in the cards anytime soon. Like, just
Yeah,
so,
it's
I don't,
true. And I think it's difficult, especially when you're both entrepreneurs or like both building
yeah,
businesses. Like my husband and I talk about this a lot, especially now with the baby coming and just like the shifts and changes that we're making and
yeah,
really smart about it. But a lot of times he
yeah,
might not tell me everything right away because he doesn't want to freak me out. But you know,
yeah,
we have really good communication, thankfully.
yeah. And I think it's so interesting. And I think a lot about this, kind of these pro con pros of starting companies at different life phases, right? I mean, you
Yes.
all are at the point where you're about to have a baby and you have this company and there's risk that, and I, when I was first kind of going into it in my 40s, where I've been an executive, our company was a startup and I've seen the ups and downs firsthand. And I, had to run a team as chief operating officer through a global pandemic
Right.
and all of these things. And, so I thought, oh, I have all this experience that will really help, being a little bit older as an entrepreneur. Like I
Yeah.
did have a life savings that I could completely dwindle to nothing. Besides a very embarrassing IRA. Kids to do it IRA young. Um, you don't need to go to the bar one more night. Invest that money. But you know, but I thought all these, oh, I know people with money. I know people that have sold their businesses. I know like this will really help me. And there are positives, but kind of like I was just saying, there's massive lifestyle changes. It is a little hard to be in your 40s when all your friends are, some of them, my husband's 13 years older. So he's thinking about retirement. And like all of a sudden, like now your partner has zero money, has nothing. We do have a rental property that's kind of like if the shit hits fan, I can let that sell that and recoup everything I've lost, and if I would have sold it by now and totally invested into the business. So it's a little good that he's a little bit of a more balanced than I am.
It's
Because
good
I'm like,
balance.
sell it all. We're keeping auto fluencer going no matter what, like I am ready to like all in. I am
Yeah.
all chips in. And he's like, let's not, and but that is hard to have a pretty hefty lifestyle change. Like we're down to one car in our 40s. My friends are all in BMWs and Mercedes. And I'm like, let's get a used,
Yeah.
and so that's weird. Whereas when you're in your 20s, like no big deal, right? Like hey, that's part of it. Like,
Yeah.
but now it's a weird thing. And now it's, that can be weird. And it can be, then you start to realize all those friends with that money that sold businesses, oh, they may not be the right investor for your company,
Right.
right? Like they may
Yes.
not, if they don't get what you're doing and they don't understand it and they don't see the opportunity and they want to grind you on the valuation because they don't realize that the creator economy is getting valued at $250 billion. And that's the space we're playing in. And they're like, I don't get it. And they don't want, and they want 30% of your company for 100 grand. Then you got to be like, oh, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
And then I find myself then back in the same position of those 20-year-olds who don't have friends necessarily with money. They might have family with money, but who are going, I'm going for the same types of capital they're going for, angel funds, pre-seed investment. And
Mhm.
I thought that was something, naively that I would be able to avoid because like I'm in my 40s, I got friends with money. Show,
Well,
you
and
know.
that's such a good point though, because a lot of people don't even think of that, especially if you're building the business from the ground up and you need investors, like what kind of investors, knowing like where the angle is and how to pitch yourself
Mhm.
and knowing
Mhm.
what those next steps are. So even for your process, because people listening, they might be in that same position, whatever industry they're in.
Yes.
How did you kind of go about that? Like I know it sounded like
Okay.
certain people would that didn't, and vice versa.
Yeah. Again, okay. So one thing is, and everybody tells you this, and there's so many things that you have to learn the hard way. So I
Yeah.
totally acknowledge like what I can take and fall on deaf ears because you have to learn the hard way. There's a lot I've done since starting this business where people are like, you should do it manually at first and do everything manual so that you know exactly what to build, you can build it. Well, frankly, I didn't want to do it. I was scared of getting stuck in a managed service and never fully building out the technology.
Yeah.
Um, and I had, I was scared of that. And I do think had I done that, I probably wouldn't have kept going with the business. And what happened is we did end up spending money on a prototype and I became enamored with the prototype. And so when I had those conversations with brands and creators, they're like, this is bitchin', they're so into it. Then I was like, oh yeah, we're
You're
on
right
this
here.
yay. And then lesson learned, we kept building on that prototype. So pro tip, your prototype may not be the best thing to start building on, just so you know. But how I've learned is A, the hard way, and B, still learning, like in my head. So in the spring, I found an email I sent someone from April and I was like dying laughing when I read it. I'm like, oh, that's so cute. What I didn't know that I didn't know. Cause I'm like, we'll be in revenue by June. And like hopefully closing out our angel round. And it's months later. We are now finally in revenue. So luckily it wasn't a year later, it was just a few months. And we are just now starting to go into angel round. And partially because of some of those things that I realized the people are talking to is maybe not the right people. And I maybe wouldn't get the valuation that like we're constantly changing it. And then I will say, find mentors, find advisors. So before I put anything in writing, I went on a massive hunt over these last few months of I need to find some business advisors that even if I have to give them a little bit of equity, I need to find someone or even pay. Because I don't, there are a lot of things you can go back on. We can eventually change the code in our software. We can eventually, team members can change. But when you do that initial capital raise and you set that valuation, that you can't change. What you said and did there, you can't change. So right now I'm bringing on some professional advisors. I've already been in conversations with people that are like, oh, wait, hold on. And I could have walked myself into a few things. So that's advice there is reach out to your network. Phoenix isn't a huge startup network, but there are some people that have been very generous with their time. And then this is one area where my broader network of having people that are like, oh, I know this person. Oh, I know this person. This guy's a CEO. He sold 2 companies. He's been an investor himself. Let me introduce you to him and he knows your space. And so it took a little while, but I am finding the right people, the right advisors that know my space, that believe in my space, that are passionate about it, that know software. Careful taking advice from like, your dad's friend who has a retail business and you're a software business. It's completely different. Like find people in your space, find organizations, find associations, and get advice from people that have been there, done that, because you'll save yourself a lot of heartache and headache. And I think that's too why in the beginning some of it fell on deaf ears, because they were people that really hadn't been there, done what I was doing.
Right.
So I kind of took they still ended up being kind of right. But I do stand that I think had we not paid to build the prototype, I don't think I would have fallen in love with the business as hard, and I don't think we would have made the traction we've made. I think I'd be doing something completely different. So I don't regret those
Yeah.
decisions. I am like, but now I will say we do have the bandwidth we are going to manual prototype some things before we go in and build some of it.
Yeah, no, I think that's smart. And that's part of the process, right? Like you kind of have to throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And you never know what's going to stick. And it's like you fail 9 out of 10 times
Yeah.
in when you're starting something. Maybe not that much, but I know I
Yeah.
but that's the process of it. And being able to realize, okay, this wasn't the right people I'm talking to, how to like shift that and
Mhm.
knowing don't take advice from every person you come in contact with because they might not
Yeah.
really know your industry as well.
Yes. Yeah, because everybody gonna give you that's one thing too. I have to actually this weekend I have so by the time people listen to it, it'll probably already be done and you can ask me how it went. So I
Yes.
just found out I was selected as a semifinalist for this pitch competition that
Oh my,
I'm really, really excited about it. I will find out September 6th
oh,
if
there's-
I'm a finalist and I get to go in November and pitch on stage, and I'm obsessed with the group. It is a female focused tech fund, and you don't have to be saving the world. You can be a marketing technology company like us. They have other portfolio companies that don't do exactly what we do, but kind of similar. And their parent company owns some very popular automotive brands. So I'm
oh,
like, this could be perfect. So I'm very excited.
that's
But
so
then I
exciting.
realized like, oh, this is putting a deadline. Like I have got to get my investor deck redone and my pitch redone. And it just so happened that this Tuesday I had signed up to put myself, I know myself, and sometimes I just have to have a deadline of like, okay, I have this thing. So it'll force me to get prepared. That's like how I work out. Like I have to sign up for a marathon so that I'll run. Otherwise I won't. And so I just so happened to weeks ago, before I knew I'd been selected for this thing, sign up for this local VC. They do kind of like a pitch practice thing they offer, which
Yeah,
is really cool.
super
So I
cool.
just happened to sign up for it. I happened to get selected. It's this coming Tuesday. And it just so happens too that this thing I got selected, I have a call with them like literally 30 minutes later.
Oh my,
And so I'm like, this weekend I'm working on my deck. But it's funny because going back to this long ass story to just explain this one thing, my deck has run away because of advice. Because people are like, oh, you should add a slide about this. Like, oh, you should have a slide about this. Like, oh, you should add this as a slide. So now I have this like monster Frankenstein deck
yeah.
that I know it's Frankenstein. I know it's too long, with this like crazy pants appendix with like all these crazy slides. And when I brought on my technical co-founder, Steven, a few months ago, I realized, because he was the first person to really put on like a true investor hat, because he's not taking a paycheck. So he is investing in the company. He's investing in the company with his time. He's investing with the company with his opportunity cost. And he really looked at it closely and was the first one to really actually ask these professional investors. I was like, oh my gosh, I've had professional investors look at this and they've not brought up any of these things. Like,
A
he was
lot.
the first person to bring up stuff that like nobody else, because they weren't seriously looking at it. And they gave out all the like, you should add this, you should do this, you should say that, and he was the first person to be like, what about that? I'm like, oh damn. So yeah. So careful of advice, because you're going to get a lot of it. And if they're not an actual serious investor and they're looking at your deck and giving you advice, they may not be the best person. So luckily, I've had a few people just recently, again, with kind of these new advisors and mentors I'm working with, and but I'm tightening it down, and I have this deadline in the sand. And I will say, I did practice. The other thing is practice pitching to people not in your industry. This is the one area where I'll say is helpful, because I pitched both to my mom and then I pitched to my husband, and he knows the space, but even he was like, I got a little lost. Like, I think it's too much story. If you can't tell, I have a penchant for the story. I like all the helpful details,
Yes.
and I'm so passionate about it that I want people to like understand it as well as I do. And
Yes.
even though it was under 10 minutes, he was like, a little too much story. You need a little bit of like the obvious, like, this is the problem and we solve it this way.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
was like, oh, shit. Yeah. So that was last night. I think I might have almost started crying because I was like, oh my God, I haven't done it. I haven't done my Tuesday. I got to work all weekend. But better than going into Tuesday, this pitch practice. And they were like, girl, because I would really been out of time. Um, so yeah, set deadlines and careful who you get advice for.
I agree. And I feel like sometimes we need those deadlines, but even to like your husband's point and like explaining it to somebody, like I've been told this too, like when I first started my coaching business, they're like, Caroline, you need to dumb it down almost of like
Mm,
make it really simple, like you're explaining it to a second grader. Not that everyone is that mindset, but I was using
right.
too big of
Yes.
words if I could get them out right
Yes.
now. But it's
Yes.
like just kind of bring it down so anybody can understand it, whether
Yes.
they're the industry or not, just like you beautifully explained, because that's a big part of the process, like understanding how you are coming across, and your passion is so clear and I love it. And I think everything you do is all about passion. And I'm really curious what internally drives your passion for empowering others through auto influence or fluencer. I keep wanting to say influencer, but
Everybody does. So
I'm like,
don't,
oh, that
yeah,
word.
don't take it personal. And it's funny, again, I mentioned it was his idea kind of years ago, kind of the initial kernel. It's changed a lot, especially the creator focus we have. But he bought the URL in 2019.
Oh wow.
And nowadays, like in our space, especially because they build cars, they race cars, and they just happen to capture it on camera. Nobody likes the word influencer. They're all
Right.
creators. They want to be a creator. I'm a creator.
Yes.
and which I totally get. And I use that vernacular all the time, or that word. See, that's me using a big word. It's hard to get out of that habit. And, you know, and so, but when I say autofluencer, everybody gets it, right? They
Yeah.
get, and that's actually an interesting thing. So to your point about, I just want to one last thing on this. I'll
Yeah.
put a pin on it of like everybody kind of understanding it. I kept using the word creator in my pitches because that's what our creators like to be called. They don't want to be called influencers,
Yeah.
right? And so they're creators. They're a race car driver, right? They're a builder. They don't want to be called influencers. It's gotten a bit of a negative connotation. And but I found when I was talking to investors or people outside to get their attention, if I was using creator, they were lost. They had no idea what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Like, and they're like, I don't get it. And I was like a social media influencer, like, oh, why don't you just say that? It's
Well, it's
all-
true. But
I
like a
was
lot
like,
of people don't
shoot.
like that.
Yeah, yeah. So my passion, I've always been a passionate person. Like I joke, like again, the OPP thing, like I've always been fascinated with other people's passions. And like the more niche and random, the more into it I am. I'm like, no way. You like, and I think this also makes it really hard for me trying to pitch stuff
Yeah.
or pitch my company because like I will sit in on different pitch practices or competitions and I'll get it. I'll be so into it because I'm one of those like jack of all trades. Like I'm into so much random stuff that like I'll know a little bit about a lot of things. So I remember I was sat through this one pitch with this guy. They create a coating for solar panels that you can like spray on that keeps them clean. And I mean, I was so into it. I mean,
Yeah.
I was just loving this guy. And plus, he was really young, which I thought was even cooler. I'm like, this is the nerdiest, geekiest, most specific use case thing ever. But like, I get it. I get the market opportunity. But some of the people in the room he had lost because he was using jargon. But I was like following along. And I actually kind of thought these people I'm like, are they like just being purposefully dumb, like not getting this and like giving this dude a hard time? But actually what they were doing for him was a great favor, is they're saying what you were saying, you got to dumb this down. But I'm passionate. I love hearing people's random stories. And again, like the quirkier and the more niche, the better. Like I'm totally into it. Like my friends who are lawyers in a very specific thing, I just think that's the coolest. And I think it's just fascinating, like following people's niches. Like, and maybe because I fell into a really niche industry and I grew up, I felt like only knowing certain businesses and then actually knowing a very niche business to my mom who worked in multifamily, like apartment communities.
Mm.
And so I learned that niche. But then in my mind, everybody's just like, then there's like doctor, lawyer, these big, you like, just like blobby things. Like I didn't think of niches or I don't know. And I'm just obsessed. I used to have a thing, bitches with niches. Like I just love niche things. Like I just think it's the coolest. And so I think I don't know. I've always been passionate.
Mhm.
I've always talked with my hands. I'm a full body laugher. Like when like when I'm laughing, like hitting the person next to me, like get them involved, like
You're
stop
like, come
hitting
on.
me. Like,
Are
yeah,
you
my
hearing
friends
that?
in high school used to joke. They're like, I need to wear like shoulder pads because you're like punching me so hard. And I don't know. I just think that's how I've always been. And I think that's why, my husband kind of knew. He's like, look, I think you need to look at we call it the aftermarket, the specialty equipment side. He's like, I think you need to look here because you love passionate people. And man, like even the manufacturers in our space are passionate. You don't build racing fuel unless you're really into racing cars.
Yeah.
You don't,
That's true.
create like old school white wall tires for cars that haven't been built in like 70 years unless classic cars are your jam. Even our manufacturers are so niche, right? This isn't the Fords of the world, like, ooh, we'll build something that everybody likes. Like it's not vanilla. Like we are not a vanilla industry. And I think that's where like my obsession and my joke of like being all in, especially with meeting more and more of the creators, is
Yeah.
like I want to help them. like in our space, it's interesting. People think of, you hear these profile stories of influencers who, was a stay-at-home mom who, God love her, and better, more power to her, that now is making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year through this audience that she has built, rightfully so, because she's hysterical and cool and funny and says the things we think in our head, and
Yeah.
and is getting paid by all these brands and getting flown all around the world. And but like in our space, 95% of the creators on our platform, they all have at least one, if not more, day jobs. Because I'm going to tell you right now, building cars ain't cheap. And racing cars sure as heck isn't cheap. And nobody thinks of this when they see the Formula Ones and like their
Yeah.
Gucci sunglasses and even the NASCARs and the Indy car. Well, those are team sports, folks. And
Right.
and the team pays for everything. Penske be paying for everything. McLaren be paying for everything. In this space, most more motorsports racers, 95% of motorsports racers, you can't get to those levels, or they don't even want to be in those levels without finding all the sponsors yourself. And you got to pay for it all yourself. Like I'm wearing, some people might know drift racing, somewhat made famous by like Fast and Furious. It's where you see the cars kind of going sideways and it looks real cool. And I found out from a friend of mine, there's a series, Formula Drift. It's the highest level of drift racing behind Tokyo Drift. And they probably say they're better than Tokyo Drift. And people from all over the world race in it. They have about 100 racers in this series, and they race predominantly in the United States. And for the pro level, where it's only 8 races a year, these guys can be spending upwards of $250,000 to $300,000 a year. I have a friend who, she's pro spec, so she only runs 4 races a year, but she does some exhibition races through other things. And then she does these really cool educational sessions to attract women to motorsports and show all the different ways you can get involved in motorsports outside of just racing. And for what she wanted to do for this year, for the 2024 race season for her, and again, she's not doing the 8 races. I think she had like 6 or 7. She did some cool ice drifting in like Sweden or somewhere. But her full cost would have been close to $300,000. And luckily, she has a day job, but in our space, most brands pay in product. And I can tell you right now, $300 worth of oil, that's not paying for your pit crew. That's not paying for your flight to go ice drift. That's not paying for all of the repairs you have to do. And people don't think of that. And so when I started to learn these stories of these people just doing what they love, like they just want to race.
Yeah.
Right? Like they just want to empower women to get involved in the trades. They just want to build cars, man. And I find out they're working 3-day jobs. And after they put their kids to bed at night, they're going in and tweaking the car. They're having to edit all the videos. I'm like, I'm going to get you paid. Our
Yes.
data can help you show your value, because just for them, a lot of them, they aren't marketers. They don't know how to pull advertising data or reporting data. And even if they spent the hours it takes to combine it from all the different platforms and put it into one stupid spreadsheet, they don't know how to turn it into charts and graphs. And they don't know what data these brands want to see to be like, yo, man, I am better performing. And we know that in our, like in kind of the influencer world, the reason why it's so popular is because when done well, it actually increases results 10.5 times better than any other form of paid advertising. But people in our space don't know how to show that. And without Autofluencer, they didn't know how to get that point across. And now they can, and we can help people get paid. We can help them quit one of those day jobs. We can help them pay for an editor so they can hang out with their kids more or work on their car more. And it's just like, that was like, that's my why. Like, that's my North Star. Like, our tagline is do more of what you love. And like, that's what we want to help you do. And we know technology in every space can help you do it, right? But to be able to help these people that this is their life. And I think I don't have a hobby like that outside of my job, like doing this. So it's like, I want to, if people have that hobby, like that passion that they love, that they just want to do all the time, like, man, more power to you.
Yes.
So,
It's bringing it all together. And I think that's so
yeah.
beautiful, understanding, okay, there's a huge gap, and you filled that gap for so many people, because you're right. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors, or they're working multiple jobs just to make ends
Yes.
meet. And especially with the economy, inflation, everything else that's going on in the world too, on top of that,
Yeah.
but being able to have something that's tangible that helps them figure out, okay, I need an editor so I can spend more time on my car or with my kids or whatever it may
Yeah.
be where they want to spend that time or not have to work
Yeah.
multiple jobs
Yeah.
in order to
Right.
pay for it. And I think that's the beautiful synergy of it all is being able to help people fulfill
Yeah.
their passion, but then you get passion from seeing
Yeah.
their passion. And it's just that ripple effect to be able
It's
to
such a ripple
really
effect.
drive it.
Yeah.
It's,
And I think it's, yeah, cool too. I mean, the nature of, in what the creators on our platform do, these builders, these drivers, with these social media audiences that they've curated and they've built, right? That who look to them as a subject matter expert, who look to them and look up to them. They are creating the next generation of enthusiasts. They are creating the next generation of passionate human beings who see a woman racing at the highest levels and think, I can do that. Or, see an openly gay drag racer and they think, oh, okay, there is a spot for me in motorsports. Or just the guy next door who grew up in rural Nebraska. And yeah, he may not be podiuming, but he's putting out amazing, hysterical content and he's getting sponsors and he's getting advertisers. And this kid can be like, oh, I don't have to race a car or even, be a full-time mechanic to be able to have this be a living for me. And I
yeah,
think that's what's so cool about just the creator economy, even the podcast that you're doing,
yeah,
right? Like to be able to do that without having to have a studio, like
yeah.
15 years ago, okay, maybe podcasts were around 15 years, but like 20 years ago, that wasn't a thing. You
Right.
needed thousands of dollars of equipment and you had to have like a distribution channel and like NPR would have to pick
Yeah.
up your This American Life or whatever it was. And like now, normal humans can inspire others. I don't know. It just every day,
I
like
love
it
it.
pumps me up. And I will say I have mad respect for just the content side of what they build.
Yeah.
When we launched our company, went to this, I don't even know, again, don't overthink it. I don't even know what I was thinking. Show up at this trade show, we have this little booth, and I don't know why, in hindsight, we didn't need a booth, but we were just launching our company. Our product wasn't even ready to be used, and we're trying to get our word out. And my co-founder, Marla, knows everybody in our industry. So all these people are coming up to talk to me. And right before, a guy that was going to be helping us out was like, do you like have social media channels for everything? I was like, oh shit. Oh no. So I had to like quickly create a TikTok channel. Never done that. I had to quickly create like all of our social channels and be like, oh, and I got to put content. So I'm literally at this trade show. People are coming up to me left and right, trying to do my first reel ever. And in that moment, I was like, I have a newfound respect. It took me an hour. It was so hard. And it was only 20 seconds. And I was like, I took forever just trying to pick the right song. There's so much pressure in the song.
Like,
And I was like, like in that moment, I was like, I have so much respect. And thank God I do not have to build our reels anymore. Ashley, my social media coordinator, she does that. She's amazing. And God love her. And man, it was in that moment too. I had a whole newfound respect, besides all the cool stuff they do, like racing and all these things, to have to create a reel by yourself. I was like,
but it's true though. Like everyone has their strengths and like maybe not their strength, but it's like being able to delegate it, understanding as a business owner, you can't do everything.
yeah.
But one thing that I love and that I've seen as a central theme in your journey, just from the short amount of time I've known you and just talking, is you're so passionate about helping other people fulfill
Yeah.
their passions as well. How do you maintain the integration between following your passion and making really business sound decisions when it seems like you're at odds with both? Like you're wanting to build, but there's passion there.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. So earlier this year, and whether you believe in I mean, I think you do, but I don't know if everybody in your audience has this power of manifesting,
100%.
right? And attracting things to you. Um, Earlier this year, I realized that not only did I need a partner on the technology side because I couldn't do everything, and I was seeing that heavily. Like I've run product teams before, I've run technology teams. I'm not an engineer myself, but but I can't do it all. Like I can't do all the things. And I was like, I need a technical co-founder who is spending as much time, effort, and energy around kind of the technology side as I'm spending around the business in general. And I knew what I needed is I needed the yin to my yang. And I literally have my vision board over there and I put on it a picture of the yin and yang symbol. I was like, I have so much passion and ideas. And already I'd probably run away with our MVP a little bit, like a little probably overbuilt than what we really needed it to be. While maybe still missing some core features that we found out when we went into pilot. They're like, oh yeah, we probably need some of these things. But he and I found a man, and it was so crazy, just going to manifestation. So I'd put this on my vision board, and you can't just put it on a vision board and expect it to happen. Then you have to really start talking about it and putting it out in the universe, right? And so I had this call with this guy who is the CEO of a company and my friend's boss, and I just really looked up to him and thought he was just a really cool guy. And I don't even know why I really wanted to do a call, but I just thought he was cool. Like I just wanted a little bit of that to rub off. And so I happened to throw out there, he was like, well, what is your next big challenge, that you're facing? And I was like, I really need a CTO. I said, and I really need someone who I can't, with my passion, sway, because I can influence people pretty heavily with oh yeah, that's a great idea, Erica. Let's do that. And if they get caught up in kind of my windstorm of passion, then it's both of us leading down this over the top, overbuilding all the features that you could ever want in the whole wide world. And, and he was like, you know what? I might know someone. And it was actually the former CTO of another friend, a guy who I know really, really well, his company, and they'd sold to private equity. And this guy had been their founding engineer and CTO and built the product from the ground up. And had recently left the company just like about a month and a half before. So it was so recent that when I texted the other guy, like, hey, what's going on with you? He was like, how do you know about that? And so, but they put us together, started as an advisor, and man, he is the yin to my yang. He is so pragmatic. He is so like, we don't need all that. And inversely, I get snowed because I am so passionate by other people really easily. Like when I ran product and technology, like if the engineering team was like, oh my God, we need this tool. It's so cool. It's like the hottest thing. And I'm like, oh, it's the hottest thing. Oh yeah. Okay. We should do that, And I think because I was trying to prove something because I wasn't a technical engineer, like I wanted them to like me, or I wanted them to be like, oh yeah, Erica gets it. So I could easily get so like, he is just like, will this help us with revenue? Do we really need this right now? Like he will push me and he reins in that like passion and he keeps me grounded and he says, look, I hear ya. I hear ya, but I think we need to sell what we have right now. This is cool. This is cool. I'm not disagreeing with it, but like, let's wait till we have an investment and then we can build that. Or I can prototype that manually in the back end. We don't need to put our engineers out, so that is because I know that about myself. And again, because I've seen it and through some of my self work and the help with my coach, because she does that too. Like she would be like, is this what you really should be prioritizing right now? Like, is this the number one priority? Like you can't have five. And I found that in him. And so I would say, if you were someone like me who like, I always think, had I not maybe gone this way, I would have been like a politician because I could like rile a crowd or like a preacher and like a mega church or something. But is find whatever that yin to your yang is, look for that. Like Steven isn't maybe the person who I'm going to be like, let's go party together. And that's probably the worst person for me. Right. I knew it when we do this thing. We have these 10 questions, which I learned from my last company. It's like kind of a way to get to know new team members and just things you wouldn't think to know. And especially because we're all remote, it's a little bit harder. The question was like, what is something you would want people on the team to know about you that they may not know? And most people would be like, oh, I might do this, but it's because I'm really thinking that, or I might be that, more like business related. And his was, I only drink water, and for special occasions, sometimes I have sparkling water. And I'm like, oh, you are so my person. Like, You are so like, it is just great. It is great. And I couldn't have picked a better yin to my yang.
Yeah.
And so that would be my advice there.
I love that. And I think that's super important. Like I even see that with my husband and I running a solar company. Like sometimes like he has this huge vision. I'm like, okay, well, what are the steps to get there? Like let's
Mhm.
backtrack for a second. He's I see the idea, I understand it. And then vice versa. Like I'll get a really
Yeah.
big idea and he's like, wait, we gotta engineer it backwards. So it's like that yin and yang, whatever business
Yeah.
you're doing, and just making sure you have people that are gonna continue to support you, but challenge you as well. And I think that's like what I'm hearing so much and heavily, and what I see constantly when it comes to that. But even with just everything you've already accomplished, I see this like massively growing over the years. But with the evolution and your vision, what do you see happening since the inception of Autofluencer to now, and what you envision for the next few years? What do you see happening?
Again, I think so really it was this time, actually right around this time last year that I made the decision to go full time. We had a little prototype. I thought it was going to be in market and usable by the end of the year. That's cute. Took a year. Like it's literally like in market with our true MVP right now. And look, I can feel as much as my husband is like revenue at all costs. Like, I think if he had his druthers, he'd turn it, we'd be an agency or something, which I'm like, nope, we're a software company. Like, we have some light managed service, but I don't want to play. We have agency partners and that's their game. I want to be software. I want to stay true to that. Um, and it's just a slower road to hoe when you want to do that. There are costs. You can't just offset costs with a big agency spending a whole bunch of managed services. And so over the next year, I can feel this momentum building. A lot of things, like whether or not we become a finalist in this pitch competition, just the fact that, like, because the email was like, you stood out, your company stood out. Like we received an overwhelming response, whether that was real or not, but that's what they said. In your so just to know that like, oh, okay, like we are standing out, that it's been acknowledged. I do think we're unique. We are so focused on this very unique niche. There's no other software companies being built for our space outside of like not quirky. That's not fair to them. Like very specific e-commerce sites for the space that have a very special like data normalization component because of all the products and the fitment. Like, oh, can this product go on a 1973 Ford F-150 like me? And someone's probably gonna be like, there wasn't a Ford F-150 in 1973. Sorry. But but like, so there's that,
Yeah.
but no one is building software to help these, both the brands and even our creators, move forward and to future proof your business. There's no one doing that. Like, and now me being in it, and I can get some of the reasons why, but because I already had a penchant for this business, because I was already in automotive, you know, I think our opportunity over the next 2 years, just in the United States, is amazing. I do see us taking off now, not the same time frame I think my brain thinks it will. I think it'll take longer, right? It
Awesome.
is easy to put numbers in a spreadsheet on paper, which I love numbers on paper that aren't real. It's so
Me
fun.
too.
It's so fun. So I do have to remind myself, if I think it's going to take this long, double it. I mean, and that's something going on with our investment raise we're about to go into. Like we had one number and Steven and I talked, he's like, Erica, we may not be asking enough. Like, I think he's seen a little bit of like my optimism of like, we might want a bit more. And like, he's also seen that I like to, I'm putting like everything in my budget is like aggressively lean and like probably too aggressive. And he's like, really, everybody's going to be like part-time for the next year and a half. Like we're going to work off just like fractional and we're going to grow like this with all fractional humans. I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe that's not realistic. And so, but it is one of those, I do see this momentum building. I also see a huge opportunity for us to expand. On LinkedIn, we use the phrase a lot, the enthusiast economy, which contains both, the enthusiast motorsports and specialty automotive aftermarket industry. but does like we're already seeing this overlap happen into these tangential industries. I call them the pickup industries. They're kind of encapsulating this broader like enthusiast outdoor recreation space. So and 71% of people that participate in these activities drive a pickup truck. That's why we call them the pickup truck industries. But that's like power sports. So think side by sides, the 4x4s, motorcycles, mountain biking, hunting, fishing, overlanding, which is where you drive in the middle of nowhere and you camp. Like we're already overlapping that because a lot of our manufacturers produce products for increasing the towing capacity of your truck, for lifting your truck so you can go off-road, or the suspension and the shocks you need to be an off-road vehicle. Well, then once you get into that, then it's like, shoot, you gotta put some toys up in that truck. You gotta have your 4x4, your side-by-side, and it's just, we're already overlapping. We already have people that sponsor professional bass fishermen. One of our agency clients just brought on a company that they sell fishing products. So I see that it's not a focus of ours right now. We want to stay, focused in the automotive sector, but it's already happening.
Yeah.
It's already happening with or without us. So I do see by the end of next year, going into 2026, that we will have a more intentional push and focus into those spaces. And look, like I've been working on my little pitch, and at the end of it, I say, so like, come join us in the fast lane as we accelerate to the future, because I'm cheesy and that's how I am. And I'm like, I do see it. I do see that, right now we're on that on ramp, getting onto the freeway, and maybe in a little bit of an older vehicle that doesn't accelerate very well. And it's taking a little longer like to get on, but I do think once we get on, we're going to be switching lanes, and it's going to happen, like you see, it's like this and then that hockey stick. And I think some mornings I wake up and I think, who do I think I am? I'm going to build a hockey stick company. And I actually fought it for a long time. Like, we're a niche company. We're niche. We're just going to stay niche. But the more I look at our market opportunity, I'm like, you know what? We could be a unicorn. We
Yes.
absolutely could be $100 million company. And that doesn't mean I'm going to take crazy pants VC capital like a crack smoker and be like, oh yeah, give me more. I don't have to be that way.
Right.
We can still be practical founders. We can still be pragmatic. We can still have efficient growth. I don't have to overspend. But I do see us taking off. And it may not happen by the end of this year, which it won't, but I see it happening. And because I think at the end of the day, when your North Star is helping people ultimately, right? Helping people do more what you love. That's why I'm ready to sell, my husband's not, but I'm ready. I'm like, let's sell it all and move to the middle of nowhere. As long as there's good Wi-Fi, I could do it from anywhere, reduce costs so we can keep Autofluencer going. So while he's not ready to take that leap, man, I'm all in. And it's because we're trying to help people, and we're trying to help people do what they love. And so I do think that, I do think we will take off, and I do think we will help these people. And one of the metrics I want to track is how many of our creators get to quit day jobs. And it's going to be something we're going to do. And I have a whole vision of like, we'll do a little celebration. You get to quit your day job, and we'll send a little like congratulations package. So kind of like the YouTube has those like play buttons they send.
Yeah.
So I have a fun little thing we want to do where we celebrate people who get to like, oh, now you get to do this, and our own version of those YouTube play buttons for people that get to do more of what they love.
Yes, and that's what it's about. And I love that, like, just to kind of relay back in of just everything that you have accomplished and what your vision looks like. I really do believe once you have a solid foundation in any business, you can grow. You can add different tactics and different avenues for your business. But this is something I struggled with. I tried to do too many things at once, and everything kind of crumbled, and I had to rebuild multiple times. Even with our solar company in the beginning, we had to rebuild. And I think that's a really important aspect of focusing on the niche first, the niche, and then continue to expand. And that's exactly what you're doing. Even though you've always, throughout your life, it's been niche focused, like from the time you were little and like what you were exposed to till now. And I think that's the beautiful thing of when you have no cracks in the foundation. It's like building a house. you
Yeah.
have cracks, mold might come in, other things, but having a solid foundation allows you to really grow. And I can't wait to
Yeah.
see you be in multiple lanes because you've built it so pragmatically and have that foundation to really continue to grow. And like, it's hard to be
Yeah.
pragmatic. You have vision. I mean, I have my head's in the clouds half the time. My husband's like, come back down.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know, but I just like have this idea and I want to do it. But
Yeah.
that's what I think you're able to do, and it's emerging. And these markets, just you're filling such a big gap in the market that is so necessary for so many people. And I can't wait to see how many creators can quit their day jobs. Like, I want to know.
I know.
Definitely
I
post
know.
that stuff too.
I will.
Put on
I
your
will, man.
TikTok.
We're gonna celebrate. Yeah, exactly. I know. I definitely make Ashley handle the TikTok. I'm like, I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
with TikTok. And look, I
I'll tell
love.
Ashley.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. The power of TikTok. I will say this: it is, the number 2 search engine in the world. It's the largest search engine in Asia.
Yeah.
It is powerful, and people have a misconception about it. Just for me personally, because I never use it, it can't figure me out. So the algorithm is always like, when I log in, the content is like the weirdest stuff because it's like, will she like this? Will she like this? And part of it's like, Instagram's already got my number. I don't need TikTok to have my number too.
One and done.
When your business is on, and my last company, like that I came from, we actually built technology to help car dealers connect to consumers through social media. So when your business has been in social media, like, it is hard to stay off of it. And it's funny, when I was in that little period in between the 2 companies, I had timers, like literally a 5-minute timer on my Instagram, and it would shut off and it would shut down. And it's not like the Apple one where you could keep it going. I'm a Pixel. So I'd have to literally go in and reset the settings. It was such a pain. So I never did. So now I have no timers, and it's like unbridled. So I have to talk about having to catch yourself do something. And I have an 8-year-old too, and he's so cognizant of it. Like, when your 8-year-old is asking for us to have technology free days, that's when it's like, okay, I need to set it down, and like, I need to step away from the phone.
It's hard, especially because a lot of business owners, I mean, most business owners are on some form of social media, no
Yeah.
matter what it looks like. But it's being conscious of that. That's something my husband and I are talking about as we bring a child into the world, like what that
Yes.
looks like for us. But I think it's important to have tech-free days, but it can be really challenging when your business is all online and
Yeah.
you've created an app.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
little challenging there,
And
I
it's Yeah, and when part of your job is following social media creators. And so, like, on Instagram, it just keeps, what about this creator? What, I mean, they don't want me to stay just in automotive. They want to send me everybody. And I'll say, I just noticed the other day, because I follow a lot of like comedians and like skit
Mm,
comedy creators as well. And I
yeah.
noticed the other day when I was scrolling through Instagram, I'm like, oh shoot, I only see the creators now. Like, I don't see any of my other friends anymore. Like, and I never used to follow, like, and now it's all I follow. And I was like, oh no, I can't see my friends' updates. So I'm like literally contemplating getting another, like, I need one, another Instagram account, and just refriending all my friends so I can see their content there.
Heck, the
Because I don't
algorithm.
want to unfriend the creators. Like they say, that's my
Yeah.
new entertainment these days. I
And
don't
then gives
watch TV.
inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah.
Inspiration for all the things that you're doing. And you never know because those lanes might intersect and
Yeah.
change. So it's just being on top of it, seeing what's out there and continuing to grow. But Erica, I've been so enjoying this conversation. I feel like I could ask you a million more questions. We'll have to have you back, but where can people find you, find everything that you're up to? We're going to link it below, but
Yeah.
let us know too.
Yeah, I mean, our website is autofluencer.com, spelled kind of just like how it sounds.
Mhm.
And then we're, pretty much on all the socials, as you now know. The
Really?
only one, yeah, the only one I actually don't participate in at all, and nor really do our creators for their content, so we don't track it, is X. That's the only one that I don't have, and we don't participate in. But yeah, everywhere else, all the links below. We're on all the things, and we do have a vlogcast called, so if you are a content creator or you are a brand that partners with content creators or influencer, we do have an educational vlogcast called Creators and Coffee. It's on YouTube, and then we put little reels on our socials. And so you can go to our Autofluencer YouTube page. It's called Creators and Coffee, where we interview both brands and creators about how to build more successful partnerships, different tips and tricks. We actually have a few episodes coming out about podcasting, where we've had a few podcasters on, and they're quick. We try to keep it under 15 minutes for most of them. And just, yeah, so that's a good one. And my Ashley always gets bummed because we only have like 30 subscribers on YouTube. So give us a subscribe. Because she's like,
Yes.
oh, I'm like, but girl, that's not our audience. Like we post the reels. We don't need people to watch the whole video, but so give us a subscribe, make Ashley happy. She tracks those numbers. She's so cute. So
And because I almost forgot too, outside of Creators and Coffee, your show, you also have a networking group that you have that you've created. Can
oh,
you talk a little bit about that before I let you go?
okay. Yeah. So because I don't have enough on my plate,
Of course.
yeah, I'm also den leader for my son's Cub Scouts and pack treasurer, new member coordinator. We actually have Cub Scouts tomorrow, so I got to plan that after this. But about it, right when I was leaving my job, actually, when I was leaving the last company, um, it's so fascinating how we had I did this thing, ladies night out, where once a month we'd get together, we'd talk. And I really realized what we'd actually always talked about surface stuff. And so when I brought up like, oh my gosh, I just resigned, like I gave 2 months notice, but they're like, what are you going to do next? I'm like, I have no idea. I have no idea. I think I'm going to consult. I don't know. And that changed the tenor of the conversation. And this woman had been coming, who we were friends, um, brought up, she was like, hey, I have always wanted to do this group. And where it was kind of an accountability group. Her husband had been an entrepreneurs organization. And she was like, well, we meet and we hold each other accountable and we talk about goal setting and we talk about improving ourselves or vision boards or whatever, similar to what she saw her husband do. Cause he'd been with his group for almost 18 years. And she was like, it's changed his life. And I would love to have that same kind of in-person small group. I was like, let's do it. And so we put it on the calendar. We didn't know what we were doing. We just jumped in. And so she kind of planned, she runs leadership and development for a company. And so she kind of planned some of the facilitation, some of our early sessions. And what's interesting is we picked actually not our closest friends. The group is really great because we are friends, but like it's not where we feel awkward sharing everything. And there's obviously high confidentiality in it. So it's called the Women Empowerment Forum, We Forum. And we're actually going to be spinning up a website and potentially expanding it because I've had other friends be like, I'd love to be in a group like that. Because like for me and being a startup, there aren't like YPO or EO, like your company has to be doing millions of dollars a year. You can't just be a part of it. Chief is $5,000 a year. And they're like really weird about how they select people. And nobody really knows how that works. And it's all virtual. So yeah, that's been too, I guess, another thing where having this group of women that I meet with once a month in person, and it's like 2.5 hours, from like 3:30 to 6, and then we go to dinner. And we are, we're really focused about, and there's always a different topic. Like we just did manifestation, or manifesting, at the last session where we talked about tips on how to manifest and how these resources. And so it is really powerful. So again, find something local, and who knows, maybe one day we forum. I'm trying to get my co-founder in that to take it and run with it and to expand it and do it as her full-time thing.
Yeah.
And it is cool. I was already doing my own thing, but one of the other women is starting her own business, trying to get the other one to start her own business. So we're all kind of slowly becoming entrepreneurs. And it wasn't intentional, but it was just kind of happening as we kind of inspire and empower each other.
Yes, and that's been the theme of this conversation today, but just your life. You're inspiring and empowering so many individuals to really go after what lights
Yeah.
them up. And you're doing that by helping everybody, like what's
Yeah.
lighting you up. So it's just been such an honor to have you on today, Erica. Thank you for your time, your energy, your beautiful, beautiful soul of what you're doing in this world and just really helping so many people in a space that might have been neglected if you hadn't stepped in. So thank you for being here today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me on, Caroline, and for what you're doing, right? Podcasts like this and, helps inspire other people. You get to hear other stories, and I think it's great. We need more people inspiring more people.
Yes, that's the biggest theme, right? But
Yeah.
thank you again. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment below. What was the biggest takeaway from Erica today? What inspired you to maybe start your own business or dive a little bit deeper into your own? But let us know in the comments. I'm sure everybody would like to see that, and we'll see you on the next episode.